Parshas TOLDOT, and we shift, the Torah shifts this week from the account of Avraham, the first Jew, and Sarah, and goes to the next generation of Yitzhak and Rivka. And you should know that every single word, every single idea is pregnant with meaning in this, as probably all Torah is, but it's more obvious in this particular parsha, because at the beginning of the parsha begins with one of the most apparently silly stories that you can possibly imagine. And we learn, as a matter of Kabbalah and Chassidus, that some of the deepest Torah and some of the deepest secrets are contained in this story. So let's just do the story together, remembering who Yitzhak was. Yitzhak was the second of the Avos, the second of the forefathers. We know that Ma'aseh Avos Siman Labonim, which means that the actions of the Avos, of the forefathers, are a blueprint for you and my life, that it's going to be, all of these things that are recorded in the Torah are going to bounce back at one level or another, revealed or concealed, obvious or not, in your life and my life, and often, particularly in the weeks Sedra in which it happens. And there are fascinating studies on this. We haven't got time for that tonight, but the point is that you're talking about the second Lubavitcher Rebbe of the Torah. I mean, Yitzhak was arguably holier than Avram. Why? Because he was an offering. He was an oiler. He was a korban. And when there was a famine in Israel and he wanted to leave Israel and go to Egypt like his father did, Hashem says to him, "No, you can't leave Israel. You can't. You're so holy that the heir of the diaspora won't agree with you. You have to stay in Israel." And he did stay in Israel, and the Torah says that he became rich and he became famous, and you have to understand that this is a man who's an introvert. He is the Avram is the epitome of chesed, kindness, outreach, helping other people. Yitzhak was the epitome of discipline and boundaries and restriction and serving Hashem with awe. So he is, I mean, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was inexplicably holy compared to everybody around him. Now imagine Yitzhak. And Yitzhak, this story with Yitzhak and the bracha reads like the silliest story you can imagine. So let's do it. We learn that Rivka had trouble falling pregnant. When she did finally fall pregnant, she had terrible trouble in her pregnancy. Whenever she walked past a shul, there was kicking in her uterus. When she walked past a house of Avodah Zarah, there was kicking in her uterus. She thought she was giving birth to some sort of schizophrenic. She went to the house of Shem and Ava and asked what was going on, and it was explained to her that she was carrying two souls, two children, one of whom would be wild, and one of whom would be calm. So one of whom would be attracted to evil, one of whom would be attracted to good. And these two currents were born, don't forget they're both Jews, They're both from a Jewish mother. So they're twins, as you know. When they're finally born, they're twins. Esav comes out first. Yaakov comes out second, holding onto his heel, and we learn that this is the beginning of the whole war between the Nefesh Abamis and the Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul and the animal soul, which you and I have. We're Jews, and we have both of these energies and both of these pressures in our makeup. Of course, in a complicated cocktail for each person, different, and we'll come back to that. But at the moment, we've got these two children. It says of Esav that he was a hunter. We learn later on in his adulthood, he was a debauched murderer. His hunting wasn't just for food and game, which it was also for food and game, but he used to hunt people. He used to go out looking for people to hunt, track down, and shoot and kill and butcher, and whether he was a cannibal or not is mentioned in one place. And at the same time, he was an absolute philandering, debauched. He was a criminal, bad man. Yaakov, on the other hand, says that he sat in tents, he sat and learned Torah, he was normal, he was balanced, he was decent, he was kind, he was good. And we have, the Sedra begins with one of the most incredible statements, that Yitzhak loved Esav and Rivka loved Yaakov. And you have to ask yourself, what does that mean? What was there about Esav for Yitzhak to love? Yitzhak is so holy, he's not even allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael, because the air of the diaspora is too bad for him. And on the other hand, it says that he loves Esav. And what is there to love about Esav? There's nothing to love about him. He's an animal, nearly an animal. He's evil. And Rachel loves Yaakov. So we have this amazing story that Yitzhak was going blind because of the wives of Esav, who used to bring incense for their avodah zarah, and that incense was getting in his eyes, and he was becoming blind, and he was getting old, and it came time that he needed to pass on the brachas for Am Yisrael, the brachas of Avram Avinu to Am Yisrael. Now we're talking about something so important that it's for the whole of Jewish history, from the time of Avram till the time of Mashiach. These are the brachas that we're talking about. This is an empowerment of Am Yisrael to make a dira b'taktoinim, as we'll learn in a minute. And he says to Esav, you're the firstborn, go and hunt me some game, and so that I can give you the brachas. So you have to ask yourself the question, really? He's going to give the brachas for Am Yisrael for the whole of history, and it's dependent on a barbecue. He needs to eat so badly, Yitzhak. The Lubavitcher Rebbe hardly ate. So if he hardly ate, how much more so Yitzhak? It's so important to Yitzhak to have a barbecue before he blesses him for the whole of the history of Am Yisrael. And then the story gets sillier and sillier. Off goes Esav to the field to hunt game to bring back so that he can get the bracha. Rivka overhears the whole story, calls Yaakov, says, you're going to go to my pen, take a sheep, check the sheep, I'll barbecue it so that your father will like it, and you'll take it in to him, and instead of that, and you'll pretend to be Esav, and then when you pretend to be Esav, you'll get the bracha. And Yaakov points out, but Esav's hairy like a gorilla, and I'm not hairy, so Dad'll know. So she says, no, he's blind. And he said, but he might feel me. So she says, that I'll cover you so she covers him in woolly fabric, and he goes in, and we have this famous phrase that Yitzhak says that the voice is the voice of Yaakov, but the arms are the arms of Esau. So, and Yitzhak is fooled. In the story, Yitzhak is fooled, sufficient to give the bracha for the whole of Am Yisrael, not to Esau, but to Yaakov. How can you believe that? I mean, how does that story sit with anybody? And you're not talking about people of limited intelligence or limited perspective. You're talking about Yitzhak, the second of the Avos. And so there are a legion of questions. The first question is, how could he have loved Esau but not Yaakov? We learn you have to love your children equally, right? And if you don't love your children equally, if that's your pickle in life, at least don't show it. So how can the Torah openly say that he loved Esau and there was nothing to love in Esau? And then you have the whole question of him being confused. First of all, wanting the meat. What does he want the meat for before he gives the bracha? And then when he gives the bracha, he's dumb enough, in inverted commas, to be tricked by. It's a pretty silly trick. I mean, how many people would fall for that, really? And then the story goes on, as you know, that when Esau gets back and asks for the bracha, and Yitzhak is apparently alarmed that he's given the bracha to Yaakov, so Esau says to Yitzhak, well, this is the second time he's gypped me. When's the first time? Asks Yitzhak. He says, when he sold me the bechoya, the birthright. In our legal system, the firstborn gets a double portion, and that carries with it certain responsibilities, spiritual responsibilities. The story was, as you'll remember, that Esau came in from hunting, murdering, debauchery, and he was very tired. He was hungry. And Yaakov was making lentils, and because it was Avram's funeral. Anyway, he said, "Give me to eat." Actually, the Torah uses the word haliteni, which means pour down my throat. And it shows you what sort of an idle guy this Esau was. You pour down my throat like an animal, the lentils, and Yaakov says, well, I will only if you sell me the birthright. So he sells him the birthright, and when Esau says, that was the first time he tricked me, and today's the second time he tricked me, so Yitzhak's very happy that he tricked him the first time, because now he knew that he gave the bracha to the right guy. He's got to give the bracha to the person who has the bechoya. If he bought the bechoya fairly and squarely, he's at least put the bracha in the right place. The whole story doesn't make any sense at all until you begin to understand it properly. So l'chaim. So let's talk about the food, first of all, because this food, we need to get that out of the way. We're going to revise for some, and for some it will be new, one of the most basic principles in Kabbalah and Chassidus, and it's difficult. So I'll try and make it as easy as possible, but it basically works like this. Before I explain it, I need to explain a fact, a spiritual and a physical fact. We have a concept in Torah of oiros and kalim. Oiros means lights, and kalim means vessels. And you need to concentrate on this because it's very, very fundamental. Everything that you and I experience within our lifetime is a combination of oir and kali, of energy and vessel. You have a refrigerator, which is plugged into the wall, and electricity comes to it, that's its oil. The fridge, the box with the shelves and which makes it possible to store the cold is the keli. Your body and my body is the keli, is the vessel. Your nefesh, your life force, which in a Jew is the neshama, is the energy, is the light, is the oil. So everything has an energizing component and a shaping, receiving, molding component. Everything. Even a thought. If you think about a thought, an idea, the idea needs a brain. The idea won't exist. The idea is an energy. The brain provides the physical housing for that energy. That is true with everything. Now, in the process of creation, and we just don't have time for me to go through this in detail, but I'll just do it in broad brushstrokes. Some of you know this. In the creative process, there are two worlds that precede ultimate creation. One is called tohu and one is called tikkun. Tohu means wild, unbridled, unlimited, infinite. Tikkun means measured, with boundaries, normal, stable, centered. When Hashem decided to create the world, Oliver Machshava, as it's referred to, when it came into his mind, in inverted commas, to create the world, he decided to create the world through his spheres. Hashem has 10 spheres, 10 ways of manifesting himself. 3 are intellectual, Chachma, Bina, and Das. 7 are emotional. We're going to, for the sake of time, I'm going to just deal with 2 of the emotional ones, which are Hesed and Gevurah. Hesed means kindness, Gevurah means strictness. So, in the world of Tohu, there was just unlimited Hesed, unlimited. And there was unlimited Gevurah. So what happens when unlimited force meets unlimited force? You have explosion and chaos and destruction. When this is my son, he's here from Israel. So he's been creeping into behind the shir for, 38 years?
43 years.
43. No, I'm not talking about your age. I'm talking about since you were coming to the shir. He used to steal the ice every week. Remember that?
Yes.
Where was I? So you have unbridled Hesed, you have unbridled Gevurah, and there's no meeting place. So one smashes the other to pieces. Let me give you a physical example. Let's say you have a child and you love your child dearly, and your child is doing something dangerous, and you want to stop the child doing something dangerous, and you try and do it nicely, doesn't work. You try and do it with discipline, doesn't work. So now you've got to punish the child. in the example the Rebbe uses, I'll tell you unashamedly, he says you have to give the child a patch, you've got to give him a smack. Today, of course, everybody runs to child welfare, you're not allowed to do that. That's, however, I ask you this question: when a good father who is a proper, ordinary, civilized human being who loves his son, gives him that patch or punishes him, is he doing it out of love or is he doing it out of hate? He's doing it out of love. So the gevura, the strength that he's using, is mixed in with his chesed. That's his reason. And sometimes the mixture is complete and it settles the situation. And it can settle it for good, can settle it for bad. Another example, let's say that you have a private trainer, a physical trainer, and that physical trainer takes you for a run round wherever it is, and then you've got to do your push-ups and your pull-ups and exercises and all the rest of it, until when you finish you're sweating and tired and exhausted, and you're pleased with the result, right? And then you have the guy who's in jail, and he's got a person who's supervising the exercises in the yard, and he's a sadist, and he's beating this guy if he doesn't do it, and he does the same running, he does the same jumping, he does the same press-ups, does it for the same amount of time, gets just as tired, and the guy who has the personal trainer appreciates the personal trainer and likes him, and the guy who has the prison guard hates him. And they've done exactly the same thing. So what's the difference? The difference is that the guard is operating with pure gevura, and the trainer is using hesed, and he feels that it's for his benefit. So you can have these energies, and if they fit together, then the fit is constructive and helpful. If they don't fit together, it can be catastrophic. So, and that's it. There's no room for politics in this year. This is a year on Hasidus, but I can't help observing that this whole woke thing, this whole gender what do they call it? Fluidity. Gender fluidity. This is toyu. This is the world of toyu. If there are no boundaries, and no boundaries leads to chaos, and chaos is no good. So there are two. Now, I'll just take this one step further and we'll go back and then come back to it. When these energies are in toyu and can't recognize each other, can't respect each other, smash and break, they break the kalim. The light is stronger than the kali, and the kalim break. When they break, you have what's the principle of what's called shviras hakalim, which means the breaking of these kalim, and what happened to them? They fell into gashmias. These broken fragments of kalim fell into gashmias. What is the job of Am Yisrael generally, of mankind generally, and Am Yisrael specifically, is to elevate those sparks of Kedusha back up into value. Instead of being broken and useless, back into value. How do we do that? Through the whole methodology of being a Jew and learning Torah and doing mitzvahs and bringing Gashmias up into Ruchnias and bringing Ruchnias down into Gashmias. So you have this pattern. The pattern is that originally you have toyu, you have unbridled oya in kalim which can't contain it. Then you have tikkun, where the kalim are stronger than the oya, so that it's contained. You have order, you have decency, you have common sense, you have centeredness, you have progression. And you should know that the boundaries of Toyu don't exist, and the boundaries of Tikkun do exist because, and the whole thing is the Kalim. In Toyu, the Kalim are too weak for the Oya, and in Tikkun, the Oya is not strong enough to break the Kalim. Now because everything's by Hashgacha Pratis, let me use an example. My daughter-in-law, who's here with my son, the children, was telling me this morning. She was telling me this morning that they live in Renana, in Israel, and she said that one of the things that has upset her terribly since the war was that 4 of her close friends, these are religious women with children, good, decent, hard-working Jewish women, have decided together that they're going to get divorced, all 4 of them. Why? Because they've decided that the war has made them aware of the fact that life's very short and very precious, and they don't want to spend the rest of their life with the same person that they spent the last 25 years with or 20 years with. They want to have another life, and then maybe one after that. And so, and when I asked her, what about the children? She said, they feel that the children have to manage because all over the world children are living in that way. So, the saddest thing is that if they learn Hasidus, they would understand that what's really going on for them, and I'm sorry that I'm taking this detour, but I'm hoping it'll explain what we're talking about with Oiros and Kalim. If they could only learn Hasidus, they would learn that the emptiness that they feel, which they want to fill up with the next experience that they want, what they're really saying is, I have an empty place, an ache in my heart, and I want to fill it by gratifying that empty space. In other words, by taking and giving myself some further level of gratification. It's explained in Hasidus over and over again in 150 places that the way to fill an empty void is not by seeking gratification, but by giving. Seeking gratification is gevura, and gevura doesn't work. It has to be chesed. So instead of wanting to leave this husband and leave those children and find a new way of gratifying herself, which won't work, poor thing is going to be very disappointed. It's not going to work. It doesn't work. What she should be doing is sitting down with her husband and saying, how can we give to each other more? What more can I do for my husband? Not what less, what more? And then they have a chance. Why? Because Hesed and Gevura need to be, they're both oiros, they're both lights. They have to be contained in kalim. They have to be contained in boundaries. So gratification, seeking gratification upon gratification upon gratification doesn't work. It just smashes the keli of happiness. The way to have the keli of happiness is to understand that the energy that has to come with the chesed, with the gevura, has to be chesed, has to be kindness, has to be a way of giving. Instead of taking, giving. Now, I'll come back to this, but just another step in the pathway. We learn in Kabbalah and Chassidus that Rivka is the neshama, and Yitzhak is the guf, is the body. Now, until Mashiach comes, the body has to listen to the neshama. The neshama is always right. The body is not right. Why? Because we have an nefesh habahamis and a yetzer hara which drives us. We were hardwired to listen to it. Half of the business of being a frum Jew is to overcome it, or any human being is to overcome it. Where after Mashiach comes, the body will be paramount. We may not I'll try and get to that if we get time, but at the moment, just accept. So that's why in last week's Sidra, when Sarah said to Avram, "You got to get rid of Hagar and Yishmael," and he was horrified. How can I throw out my son? After all, Yishmael was his son. Hashem comes to him and says, "Listen to Sarah." And why? Because Sarah's the neshama and he's the guf. So with Yitzhak, we have a replay of that. Yitzhak is the guf, and he has to listen to the neshama. So when Yaakov hears this tension and hears what his mother's saying, and he says, "I'm worried that my father will curse me," and she says, "Don't worry, the curse will be on me." Why is she strong enough? How is that Yaakov's prepared to let her have the curse? Because she's strong enough for it, because she's the neshama in the relationship, and Yitzhak's only the guf. Now let's come back to Shviras HaKelim and the whole problem of... So Yitzhak, being merely the body, not the soul, made a fundamental mistake. Don't think for a moment that he's so stupid that he doesn't know that Esav is bad. He knows he's bad. He knows that he's a debauched person. He knows that he's a murderer. He knows that he's got a harem of idol worshippers that are driving him blind with the incense. He knows that he's a liar and a cheat and a thief. He knows all of that. So why does he want to give him the bracha? Explains Chassidus that Yitzhak was a Rebbe, and a Rebbe understands the neshama, and he saw that the neshama of Esav was from Toyu, and the neshama of Yaakov was from Tikkun, and Toyu is higher than Tikkun, and therefore he wanted to try and harness the higher energy, the infinite energies of Esav, because if he did, we'd have Mashiach straight away. There'd be no need for 3,500 years of toil and trouble and all the miseries that come with Golus. There's also some great things that have come with Golus, but Jews have lived under very, I don't need to tell anybody, that we've had our history, I keep saying, it's a river of blood. So he wanted to avoid that. He wanted that these fantastically powerful energies from Toyu be harnessed straight away, and if they were harnessed into Gashmias straight away, we could have Mashiach straight away. What's the meat? The meat is Gashmias. What he wants is that he is saying, if only I can give this bracha into Toyu, into the energies of Toyu, but with Gashmias, we'll have Mashiach, we'll have paradise, we'll have the whole mission of creation will be accomplished in one leap. Rivka, she's the neshama, and she understands that that's not possible. That's not possible. You can't have it in one jump. You have to have tikkun. You have to have the world of tikkun. That the kalim that have broken in Toyu have got to be restored. They've got to be restored by a long process of refinement and elevation. that long process of refinement and elevation, stars in the movie, you and me. That's it. That's you and me every day of our life, slogging along with Gashmias, trying to find gratification and hopefully learning enough to learn that the ultimate gratification that you find is not by trying to take but to give. And if we live 3,500 years learning that lesson properly, then the energies of Toyu will become usable in Gashmias. What does that mean? It means we'll have a Dira B'Taktoinik, we'll have a dwelling place for Hashem revealed in Gashmias, which at the moment is impossible. So all of a sudden, this apparently silly story takes on monumentally important intellectual and spiritual dimensions. And if you have any sense, you're going to be relating them to yourself in your own life. Because this is our avoider. Our avoider is it's understandable that you want paradise in one jump. Everybody wants paradise in one jump. At whatever level you define paradise for yourself personally, whether it's money or power or gratification, whatever it is. But it doesn't work. You don't get it in one jump. It's a matter of honing the spheres, honing the Hesed and the Gevurah. How do you hone the Hesed and the Gevurah? You learn that giving is more important than taking. And that's a very difficult lesson. You know how difficult a lesson it is? We haven't learned it in 3,500 years. Because the average Joe, of whom, I don't know about you, but I'm one, the default position, is that what they call it with computers? The default position is gratification, taking. That's our default position. We want to take. And it doesn't work. What does it do? It perpetuates evil. So now we have to talk, before you finish, this subject is summarized, we've got to talk about evil for a moment. And there are 3 levels of evil, as we're going to see in a minute. That we define, I'll take you to, we're running out of time, I'll take you to the end of the Sedra for a moment. And there's it explains that after Avram dies, after Yitzhak dies, Esav marries again. And he marries a woman called Machalos. Machalos is, there's a whole question in the Midrash whether she's a good woman or a bad woman. Bottom line is she's a good woman. And he marries this Machalos. I'm sorry, it's before Yitzhak dies. He marries this Machalos. And Rashi says, and that is a critical, the Torah is critical that he marries her. And Rashi says, why? Why is this a negative? Because he took evil or badness or, I've forgotten the word that Rashi uses, but badness, and doubled badness on badness. That's the... So the Rebbein of Fabringen asks, what's he talking about? What's Rashi talking about, this badness being doubled on badness? And he explains this, that because bear in mind, society was polygamous. So you can't say that and Rashi says, how did he double the badness on badness? He didn't divorce his first wives. Right? These are all these women who are idol worshippers and burning the incense and making Yitzhak go blind, etc. He didn't divorce them first before he married Machalos. So the Rebbe says, but why? The society was polygamous. There was no requirement to divorce your first wife. You could have as many wives as you want. I mean, the Torah itself cautions a king against having more than 18 wives, right? So, what was so evil about Esav taking this woman Machalos and Rashi explaining that he doubled the badness on the badness? So Rebbe explains like this, that there are three kinds of evil. The first level of evil is where it's obvious. The person's bad, and he's telling you he's bad. I hate you, he says. I hate Jews. Hitler, you Makshemwitz. I hate Jews. Nothing to talk about. There's nothing to discuss. He hates Jews. You know he's your enemy. So if you meet him in the street, you know what to do. You either beat him up or run, whatever the solution is. So that's revealed, obvious, bad. Then you have the next level where somebody is bad, but he hides it. He hides it. He doesn't want you to know that he hates Jews. And he doesn't, if there's somebody saying something anti-Semitic, he doesn't join in. He keeps his cool. He keeps it private. It's a secret. He's bad, but he keeps his badness a secret. And in both of those cases, good knows how to fight that bad. But the third level, which is the level of Esav with his marriage to Machalos, is where the Rebbe gives the example of a pig and his feet. There are 4 creatures that we are not allowed to eat because they don't have the simonim, the kosher signs. You have to chew the cud, as you know, and have cloven feet. There are many. There are 4 animals who have one but not the other of those simonim. 3 of them chew the cud but don't have cloven feet, and the pig doesn't chew the cud but does have cloven feet. The 3 that chew the cud and don't have cloven feet are saying to the world, I'm not kosher, but I'm showing that I'm not kosher because I'm showing I haven't got cloven feet. Look at my feet. It's obvious. What I'm doing inside, that's doesn't matter. I'm being honest about it. I'm not kosher. But the pig is not doing the right thing inside. I'm saying the right thing. I'm trying to make this is a baby example. But the Rebbe uses it so it can't be so baby. But he puts his feet out to show that he's got cloven feet so that maybe you'll make the mistake of thinking that he's kosher. That's the sin of Esav with Machalos, that he comes to his father and says, these women, they've been terrible, but I'm marrying a holy woman. I'm marrying a holy woman because I'm doing tshuva. And what Rashi is explaining when he says he's doubling the evil on the evil, not that he had to divorce the other women because of any obligation against polygamy, but he was using this holy woman, Machalos, to pretend that he had achieved a different level, and we call that Genevas Das. That is the Avera of tricking somebody, of holding themselves to be one thing and in fact being something else. It's not the person that just shows the hate openly. It's not the person that hides the hate. It's the person that pretends he loves you and he wants good for you. And all the time he is your biggest danger. Why? Because all he is really thinking about is him. And that is the evil that is ultimately the most difficult. And we have massive examples of this around us at the moment. You have the anti-Semitism that exists in the world at the moment is not said the way Hitler said it. It's that people aren't getting up and railing against Jews for some explained level of badness in Jews. They just invent all this baloney to hide behind. All of a sudden we've become apartheid. I mean, you can't believe this. All of a sudden we've become land thefts. There was I look at the Instagram to try and find stuff to paint. And on the Instagram feed, I don't know what makes it come, there was a map, I don't know if anyone else got this, a map of all the Arab areas, which is a piece of like that, and there's one tiny little, and that's all green, and there's one tiny little blue dot in the middle of in the top right-hand corner of that, and that's Israel, right? And we are taking their land. We're stealing their land. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that people subscribe to this. All of a sudden, we've become a nation of cruelty. We never in our history did we ever have cruelty. There's no record of Jewish cruelty. That we didn't do the Crusades. We didn't burn people at the stake. We didn't crucify people in public in pain. We didn't torture. All of a sudden, human rights. We don't respect human rights. We are the absolute high point of the lack of human rights. It's lies. You know what the Rebbe called United Nations? Beis HaSheker. You know what that means? A house of lies. That's what he called the United Nations. And this business, of this level of lying, this level of pretense of living at one level, whereas in fact one is just cancerously eating away at a different level, is the final step before Mashiach. And what Yitzhak wanted was one step. Take this man, this debauched human being, this murderer, and take his incredible energies and work with them and turn him into good. And that's when it says he loved Esau, it means he worked with him all his life, trying to take all of those energies and convert them into powerhouses for good. And Rivka, being the neshama, having a different eye, saw that that's not going to happen. It hasn't happened so far, and it isn't going to happen. And the only way it can happen is through Yaakov. How does Yaakov function? He doesn't function like that. He functions in an orderly fashion. He functions in getting up in the morning and saying Moedei Ani and washing Nagel Wasser and going to shul and davening, and then spending the day trying to focus on the mitzvahs that he needs to do, and to give his life some reason and some purpose, and to spend his life giving to other people and elevating the world. And that's how we have Mashiach. Not in one jump, but a steady process. And that steady process at its final level has to eradicate this level of evil, where the evil is in the fact that there is a pretense that the taking is really giving, when in fact all it is doing is continuing the bad. So the story now begins to make a completely different sense. You have the concept of the neshama and the guf. You have and by the way, when Mashiach comes and Hashem is revealed in Gashmias, when the Dira B'Taktoinim has been completed, the dwelling place for Hashem in physicality, what will be the most important thing? The physical. Because at the beginning of time, when Hashem decided to create Gashmias, beginning of Gashmias meaning time, because time is a created commodity. When all of the Machshava, when it came into his mind to create the world and life and Gashmias, the purpose of that wasn't for Ruchnias, it was for Gashmias. So the best ultimate prize is physicality, not spirituality. He had that. Physicality is the ultimate. Yitzhak was physicality, and he wanted to take Toyu and bring that into reveal Gashmi straight away. Rivka is a neshama, of spirituality, and she's longing to be revealed in Gashmias, but she understands it's a process, and a very difficult process, and it'll take a long time. And it's going to take Yaakov to go and run away to Lavan and live with Lavan and be tricked by him, and we'll do that in next week's Sedra. And he lies to him and cheats to him and perpetrates this evil we're talking about. Because that's the process. And you and I are stars of the movie. That's the process. So every one of us is going to get exactly I keep saying this, but the Rebbe repeated it, so who am I not to? Every one of us is going to get the exact challenges that we need. Every one of us have been created by Hashem with the exact resources to deal with those challenges. Every challenge is a matter of Hashgacha Pratis. That Hashgacha Pratis would not be fair to happen to you if you didn't have the resources to deal with it. The resources to deal with it are the resources of elevating those sparks which fell from Toyu into Gashmias, and we elevate them back into Tikkun. So I hope the story makes more sense to everyone now. So okay.